Okay, so the predominant sort of sessions that I did today or these last few weeks have been about outcomes. People being afraid of outcomes. That if Donald Trump wins, that certain things are going to happen, and if Kamala wins, that certain other things are going to happen. And really, the that's been the primary sort of direction that the sessions I've done and shared have gone down. And the other thing I think that has been there has been this kind of mm, this rejection of a characteristic of the person. So with Donald, it's been a lot of disgust. A lot of people have felt disgust at him and at the idea of him. And with Kamala, it's been this kind of confusion and asking the question, can she deliver? Can she keep the country safe? And da 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 da. And I mean, I understand that there's a strong repercussion of what happens in America for the rest of the world. So um, it's interesting. Like in my mind, I see that tomorrow it never comes. If you're afraid of tomorrow, then it's a it's a psychological unwarranted fear, really. I say that with due respect to, like, I recognise that if a fear's here, a fear's here, and I can definitely say that I have fears for tomorrow. But just in this moment, I recognise that okay, right now there's I don't even know who the Kent who the president is. So um, yeah, so it's interesting to like just to see that more often than not it's the thought about something that is the cause of the suffering, not the actuality. And that's one way self-inquiry works, is we look at the directness, right? Is there anything here to fear? I fear tomorrow. I fear that Donald Trump's gonna, destroy the world or whatever. But but the actuality of that is that in this space where I am at the moment, there's nothing to fear, and the actual suffering is up in the mind. It's the thought that says, and it might be a possible thought, it might be a probable thought, even probable eventuality, but keeping that in the mind just creates this suffering in this moment. So if the world does end tomorrow, then I'm going to be suffering between now and all the way to the end of the world, and it's not a very nice way to go. So if you can let go of the suffering today, and then you're better at dealing with tomorrow. You're better at dealing with things that come up when your mind is clear and your body is not tight. You feel love, you feel thankful in this moment. But anyway, let's just play around with it a little bit, because I don't know. I don't know who won, who lost. Um, so I'm just going to imagine there's Donald Trump that's won, and in my mind I'm going to let him do the worst things that I've heard of and thought of, and yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I get drawn into something, and it might just be because there's a momentum happening, but it could also just be like my mind. So okay, so what happens when I see Donald Trump to start with? And this is always a two-part sort of thing. There's the thought that comes into the mind and the sensation that hits in the body, and that's what we want to be aware of. We want to not think about this too much, but notice what's happening. Notice what's happening, and see if there's suffering here. So I see Donald Trump, and I got an image of his face. He's got this kind of frumpy frown on, and I don't notice a particular response to him from me. I don't notice myself here in response to him. And as I say that, there's like this activity that he's doing where he's kind of moving, being in my mind. Okay, and then actually we kind of lock eyes, and there's a sense of him wanting to not acknowledge me. Like thinking he's more important than me, and so it's interesting that this falls back onto a kind of a need of myself to be recognised in this moment. And so, self-inquiry is just, it's following what's here. You can start out by directing it, you can try and bring things in, but the best idea is just to go with what's here. And actually that's the that's the key is just to be with what's here. But okay, so the suffering for me in this moment in relation to Donald Trump is that he's bringing out this sense of, or the image of him is bringing out this sense of not being seen for myself. So in this story, it could be an outward blame. I'm blaming him for not looking at me and thinking he's above me or whatever, but it's fallen back onto me in terms of, okay, there's an experience of not being seen, and that's what I'm interested in this moment, because that's where the suffering is. And it comes up, I feel this kind of thing happening up in my eye, down my face a little bit, and I feel just the sense of being alone, and it comes with just a sense of tears, and it's kind of right here. The sensation and the thought and everything is right here. And part of the idea of this is that you can follow along at home. So you might already know what the result is of the election, and that's going to mean something to you and for you. So bring that in the same way. Bring the person into the mind, or let the story play, let the repercussions of you getting the win or you getting the loss come into the mind. And particularly pay attention to what's happening in the body. So if I come back in, I've got this. Okay, it's moved through into this little bit of anger, and I notice the image in my mind of a contraction happening with that anger, and I'm not sure why it's here. And the beautiful thing about following things is you don't really need to know why things are here. Okay, so the anger's got a little bit of a voice too, and it's just saying, why can't people like me or love me, or and so then the anger takes on this outwardness, and the Donald Trump comes back in, and there's this anger towards him, well, fuck you type of thing, and I don't need you, and you're just, it's a judgment. You're a rich bastard, and maybe there's some sense of disgust that comes with that, and it takes on an out form rather than sitting and feeling the anger in myself. It comes out and I want to throw it on this person in my mind. And what this is just the mechanism of getting away from the pain, the experience of not being seen and being alone. These defenses and mechanisms come up that stop us from feeling it, or that actually hold it into place sometimes too, because we don't want to feel something underneath. But so I'm just sitting, I'm watching that, I'm watching the image of Donald Trump in my mind, and he's still sort of just not watching me, not giving me any form of attention. And okay, it switches now too. There's a part of me, like I can feel my eyes starting to get a bit funny, and it makes me feel a bit embarrassed, and so now the sense comes in of not wanting to be seen. So it just changes the polarity. And if you watch, that's generally what happens. It comes here, it goes there, it goes, it changes and then it comes back. There's this kind of pattern that happens, and it's part of it too. It's like the whole story needs to be told in the mind without any blocking or resistance or holding on to, and then the story can fade and become something else. It's not a story of suffering anymore. It's an understanding that arises in the mind, and then what happens is the sensation, emotion, it can move and change and become something else as well. So okay, so Donald Trump, he sort of fades out, and there's no response to him sort of not looking at me or looking at me or whatever. And he's doing both in my mind. I see him like up here looking around and trying not to look down at me, and then it comes in that he can look directly into my eyes, and there's an intensity to that, but there's no moving away from that. There's no suffering in that. And then what happens is Kamala comes in, and I don't watch the news. I'm aware, but I don't really. It's not of interest to me really. And if she was sitting here with me, we could, have a conversation. But I got the feeling that, interesting, that there's this kind of, okay. I got this feeling like there's a fakeness to her, that she's putting on this act, and it's more evident if I put them side by side. It seems more evident with Kamala than it does with Donald Trump. That even though he's playing an act, he's a bit more himself than Kamala. And again, all of this is just happening in my mind. You can see that the suffering is not actual. It's not actually happening. She's not here. She's just in my mind, and all of this is happening in the mind. And even if she was here, which would be interesting, there would be the same sort of thought that would happen in the mind, unless I was able to like let go of that thought and interact directly with her. It's a little bit hard to explain that, but it's easier to see that if the thing itself isn't happening in the reality, you can see that it's the thought that's coming in and the sensation in the body. So anyway, that seems to be a bit of a point here, a point of contention. So I bring Kamala in to my mind, and And I'm just sort of watching her. I'm watching her act. And what becomes evident is that she's acting to cover up some fear. Which is interesting. So, okay, so the negative thought I might have had about her for being in this acting way, it once the understanding arises, once the insight comes in that, there's a drive here of her not wanting to feel fear that makes her act, at least in my mind, there's a relaxation of the judgment and of the negative feelings towards her, and there's a sense of wanting to give her more time and more space and be patient with her and just let her know that, hey, you can, mate. It's like brings a little tear to my eye, actually, because really all of this is about me. Is when I imagine her in my mind, I'm imagining myself in my mind at the same time, and that can be really hard to see because we're not used to looking at ourselves in that way. But really, this is about me. This is I put it out into the image of her so that I can get some space from it, so I don't have to feel. I don't have to feel personally that I'm acting. I don't have to feel personally that I'm like false in those moments. I don't have to feel personally that there's a fear that's under here. Really, this is coming back to the fear. And so when I allow myself that I can see it within her, then if I just stay there with that, I'm kind of feeling it vicariously. And at some point, the image will fall back and I can feel it within myself. I'm afraid. I'm scared. That's why I'm false and I'm see-through. So, yeah, so in my mind, that relaxation happens. And I feel it sort of fall down into the belly. Whereas before it was kind of like rising and causing some tension. It seems to have relaxed and fallen back down into the belly, and she's still talking in my mind, and she's kind of talking to feel that space, because when the space is here, the fear is gonna arise. It's an interesting mechanism too. I might have to look at that another day, but okay. And so what happens now is, it slows down with her. I start to see her more in a way, in that she's quieter and if we don't talk, imagine if no one talked to each other, if we didn't spin so much bullshit to each other, and we could just sit and be with each other and experience true connection without, the thoughts that we have about each other and ourselves. It just gets in the way. It's a pseudo connection or separation. When we can let that fall away, and most of it is about talking, and seeing too. If we were to close our eyes, just hold someone's hand. It's like it brings quite a welling of emotion, that thought. And the thought is like, oh man, I've just wasted so much time in trying. So if I sort of bring everything back in around and I bring them into my mind again, and this time when I look at Kamala, I see a warmth there. Yeah, it's a warmth and sort of caring that Donald can't muster. It's not his way. He's a lot more aloof and independent, and he's okay in that regard. Okay, and then so what also comes in then that if these people can just be themselves, that the qualities that they hold, you know, it's funny because it's togetherness. I see them together, being able to be themselves and yet um, like ruling together because it's like we need all elements of both of them. We need that sense of feeling and mothering and nurturing, and then we need the aloofness and the strength. And it's dumb. It's dumb to have only two people that can win, or only two parties that can win. It's dumb. It just naturally creates separation and conflict. And imagine if they both had to lead together. That's another idea. I've already done one video here, and it was about democracy. It was about the idea of democracy being, I don't know, actually being less than what we think it is. And that 49% of the American people are pissed today. They are pissed off. And, why do we have to, why is this the best way that the biggest part gets to choose what they want? And then it's the same within ourselves. It's a reflection of what's happening, the systems that happen in ourselves. And when we come up to some sort of problem or something that happens, and we split within our minds, and there's a part of us that wants to do something, there's a part of us that doesn't want to do something, and there's a part of us that doesn't know, and a part of us that knows, and this duality that happens, this split that happens in the mind. And the idea that we just go with one side and disregard the other side, it's and I'm talking about it as if it's the simplest kind of version and understanding of democracy, and I'm sure there's more complexities in it to try and keep everyone happy, but I like what I learned this week was that the drives are the same. The fear is the same fear, and the wanting to get rid of the fear is the same. So and also what I know through self-inquiry is when two parts come up, that we are both of them, and then we're neither of them, and they need to find some sort of balance between them and come together. And that comes through understanding that as insight. It arises from outside of us, that we see that they want the same thing that we want, and we want the same thing that they want, and then the two sides come together, fall away. And maybe that's a better system. Maybe Kamala and Trump should be president. Is there a female form of president? Presidentress? But they should be together in it. And they should have a better way of communicating. And for me, it's self-inquiry. Because it's not about being right or wrong, or getting what you want, or not getting what you want. It's about understanding yourself, and it's not through thought either. It's through insight, and that insight comes from outside of us, in a way. But Yeah, I don't know. Let's just finish up here. Um, it's funny because I can see them together. You know, Donald's still doing his thing, standing like a bit above and aloof a little bit, but there's still a connection there. I see it in the eyes. It comes in with the eyes, and he's still looking out over the horizon, looking to the future, looking to be forward, and then the balance is this Kamala who's here and, you know, nurturing and loving and under Donald's wing a little bit. You know, don't, like, feminists and that, don't take this in the wrong way. Definitely could, I can see it being the opposite way with different people. I don't you know, I don't think this is set. I'm just seeing this with these people in my mind, you know, as an imagination too. Remember this, all of this is an imagination, and it's it includes me. It includes the imagination of me. But I can see them together, and I can see them, you know, I can see, you know, there's stuff happening around. The planes are flying over, like this, the military planes, but they're peace planes, and the prosperity that comes with them actually being together and ruling together. And it's funny at the end too. They have a little kiss, like they're, you know, like they're lovers or something, which is, you know, can you imagine that? Can you imagine the shock and the awe? They came together and had a kiss on the stage and announced to the world that secretly they were lovers, but now they want to rule together. I mean, what would happen? Can you imagine the crowd? I mean, I see the crowds of people in my mind that are just gobsmacked, and it's red and blue. You know, the colours aren't divided. They're okay. It's a good note to end on. Thank you, thank you. Remember. We can see this in a different way if we like, if we want. It's there. It's available. Bye.